Isn't that nice? Isn't it nice to kind of ease into Sunday morning? Well, good morning and welcome to the Grants Pass Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Stephen Van Meter, your senior minister, as if there were other ministers here, but maybe one day I will have an assistant minister, right? But for now, it's me. It's you and me, kid. So, it's January 2018. Hello? Yay! Yay! We made it, right? And in most of our Science of Mind churches, you know that this church is part of over 500 churches worldwide that all teach the same idea, that there's only one of us here and you're it. Isn't that great to know that this isn't just a community church, but look at us. We're a very strong little community church here. It's very powerful. I'm very excited to be here. So most of our churches, the first month is covering the basics of what we teach. So if you're new here, it's a good time to get on board. You know, it's always, January we start to have a new awareness. We try to make some resolutions, as it were. And you found yourself here this morning. Maybe this is one of your resolutions, is to come back to the center of your being. Well, I know it's mine. So we're going to be teaching a little bit out of this book. I'll be going through the entire book today, so I hope you brought a pad, and I don't mean the one you write with, I mean the one you lay down on. Well, actually, this is chapter 3, because it's week 3. Chapter 1 was the thing itself. And what is the thing itself? It's all that is. Everything that is. There's not a spot where God is not. Even the challenging stuff is an expression of the infinite. Because our saying that something is a challenge is giving it a label. We don't really know that that challenge may be the exact thing that somebody needs to move them into the next phase of being. That may be the exact energetic that is needed. People say, oh, anger is bad. No, anger can be good. If it gets you off your morals and moves you into a new level of thinking. It's when anger is used in a negative way that it's challenging. Chapter 2, the way that it works. How does the power work? It works by mirroring your belief. That's the only way it can work. So we need to work on our belief level. Do we believe that this power can transform our lives? And if we believe that we can, it probably will. If we believe that it can't, it probably won't. It won't self-impose itself on you and say, no, this is really what you want to do. And here we are at week 3, what it does. What does it do? What does this thing do? And next week is how to use it. So, the first 4 chapters are this much. This much of this textbook is the first 4 chapters. Today I have 3 pages to work with. So those of you that were thinking that I'm going to get into a long dissertation, that will be later on in the year. So, but this is a really awesome, there's a lot of sacred texts. There's the Bible, and there's this, and there's hundreds of other great teachings. Don't limit yourself by thinking that there's only one great teaching, because there are several great teachings. Take what you want and leave the rest. You know, work with what works for you, and, you know, put the other stuff that's kind of questionable on the side. Maybe you're just not ready for it right this second. So from the text, what we draw from it, we must draw through the channel of our own minds. So, if we draw through it, through what we believe, what do we believe? What do you believe? This is a great thing because you can only demonstrate at the level of your belief. You can't say that you believe something when your heart truly doesn't believe it and then manifest that. So let's say that you were brought up maybe with a large family, and maybe your parents worked hard, but you know, there wasn't always enough to go around. Sometimes, this was my story. I was the youngest of 4 kids, and we had a nice big 2-story house, and sometimes there was, you know, being the 4th child, sometimes there was wrestling matches at our house for certain things, you know, for the, you know, the bicycle, you know, that all 4 of us wanted to ride at the same time. But we learned how to share, and I got creative in learning how to save money, and I went door to door asking for people for their bottles. Remember back in the day when, you know, you had to take your bottles back to the store to get money? I would go door to door asking, hey, do you have any bottles that you don't want to take back to the store that I could take to the store for you? You know, stuff like that. I was enterprising, little young guy. But I managed, you know, I learned how you had to work for what you want. That's what I was taught. If you want something, you had to work for what you want. Well, that carried into my adult life, right? You have to, if you want to be something, you have to work hard for it. And I got into this teaching and I realized that you could work consciously without working heavily to change consciousness to bring you the things that you wanted. And it was a whole new, idea that I could think differently, and that would shift the laws of the universe to bring me things that I wanted to be, do, and have in my life. So there's this thing called universal energy. It's always available. It's available to everyone all the time. You're using it right now. You've always used it. But it only works to the degree that we believe in it. So, let's say that you were looking for a partner, a mate. And you were kind of putting it out into the infinite that you were looking for a partner or a mate, but you'd always been taught that being single was the best way to go. You even had a bumper sticker on your car that said, "Happiness is being single." You're driving around and, you know, in your mind you're thinking, you know, I want to find a mate. I want to love, I want to be in love. But your car is saying, happiness is being single. So what are you really telling the universe? You know, I may believe something, but deep down in me, what's really being believed is that I'm better on my own. So you can't pray for abundance and practice lack and limitation in your life. They don't go together. If you are wanting more to come into your experience, you must be a conduit through which the infinite flows. You must be giving away, because that's how you become part of the reciprocal universe. Do you see where I'm going here? Is that we need to practice what we teach, because we don't believe in preaching. It's all about teaching. I mean, we're all learning this together. So we're using this universal field of energy, of belief, as the filter through which spirit expresses. So the whole energetic of life is about you changing that filter. And we know if we don't change the filter, it clogs up with stuff. Let's say you were only going to use one coffee filter. Yeah, you change it every time, don't you? Or you have that little, basket that you dump the old grounds out. Well, we need to dump the old grounds out once in a while. And maybe you even want, there's some flowers you can put them on that will enrich the soil. I'm not a gardener person, but I know that there are certain ways to recycle those coffee grounds so that they enrich the soil in a way that allow it to feed something else. See the recycling of the universe always at work? So Spirit can only give us what we believe we can take. So what do you believe you can take? So when you go to the infinite resource of universal energy, call it Christ consciousness, God consciousness, Great Spirit, Goddess energy, whatever you call it, that's your business. But when you call on that power that you believe creates everything, do you call on it with a beseeching, oh please, I've been good, please, if I swear I'll go to church every Sunday if you just do this for me. We're bartering, right? If I do this for the infinite will do this for me. That's a way. That's a way. I mean, that worked for me for a little while until it didn't work. And I was like, I don't believe this stuff anyway. It never worked. But there's a different way to understand how this universal energetic works. And when we know that as we start to change the direction of our thinking, we start to change the direction of our living. So, do you go to the ocean of all opportunity with a thimble? I want just this much. I got this much. Or do you go with a bucket, right? I want a bucket. Or do you go with a water truck, ding, 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 load it up, fill my truck up with good. Or do you have a pipeline to the infinite? And we all do. We all do. Just like your cell phone. Anybody, there's this new thing called cell phone. Anybody got one? No? They're really cool. They're really cool. But like your cell phone is always hooked up to your carrier, your source. And if it is, you'll get a call in the middle of church. If it's not on silent mode. But you know what I'm saying. Each one of us has a link to that satellite. We've always had the link to our good, and we just didn't know it was there. So why would the infinite hand you $1 million if you're not being a good steward of the $39.95 you have now? And this isn't to judge, this is just to notice, to check in. Because if we aren't understanding the principles of how the universe works, we could be missing the mark. It's like having a bank account with a bunch of money in it, but we don't know we have it. Each one of us has an unlimited supply available to us when we are in the right train of mind, when we are in alignment with the universal principles. So consciousness is the connection. And what clouds that connection? Well, our unforgiveness. Is there something that might be blocking your inner flow? Is there somebody or something that's happened to us that when you go and think of expressing, that it kind of blocks you? And again, this isn't to judge, because we all have stuff. I mean, we all grew up, right, with certain limitations, we thought. But what's the beauty about this teaching is that we teach that you are it. You are that place in the universe where everything starts. You are the infinite. It's not you and God. There's you as God. So I want to talk a little bit about levels of consciousness. So we're all kind of operating in different levels of consciousness. Now, I want to preface this by saying that the 4 levels of consciousness I'm going to talk about are not levels like a staircase. They're more like a disc that you would step in different places at different times. I know that sometimes in the morning I'm in one level of consciousness, and by the evening I could be in a whole different level of consciousness depending on where I'm stepping or what I'm doing or what I'm believing. So let's talk about level 1 consciousness. Level 1 is the victim state, where we've all been there. You know, life just happened to me. You know, I was just sitting there minding my own business, and life happened to me. You know, it put itself upon me. There's me, and then there's life, and it's doing its thing, and I'm the victim of what it did to me. You know, it always happens to me. You ever say that? It always happens to me. We've all been there. We've all had that experience. I was just sitting there minding my own business, and boom, it happened to me. So that's level 1. And you know, we could get into these levels and talk about them for hours, but I'm going to just lightly touch on them today to give you an idea. Next week we'll be going over them in more depth. So level 2 consciousness is you start to become metaphysical. You start to understand that maybe there are some laws in the universe that work certain ways. Maybe there's something out there. And I know that if I start thinking in a certain way, I start attracting certain energy. So it starts happening to you. And I have some control by understanding how the law of gravity or buoyancy or these laws work, and I start to work within that field. But I'm aware that there is something happening. So that's stage 2 consciousness. Stage 3 is that it's starting to happen through me. I am a conduit through which this power flows. And if I keep my conduit clear, like the coffee filter clear, that I can be available for that power to rush through me. And I think we've all been there. We've all had you ever been in the zone where it was like you woke up and everything happened the way it was supposed to happen? Everything kind of fell together and you were like, wow, I'm getting this stuff. Wow, this is cool. Excuse me. But then there's a level beyond just being the conduit through which something flows. You start to understand that you are it. That you and the power that you believe created everything is part of the same energetic. Because that's the truth of each one of us. We are all it. It can be no other way. There's not God and us. There's God as us and everything and everyone that is. What else would the infinite create us out of other than itself? So those are the 4 levels of consciousness. And again, you may be in one, level of consciousness in the morning, and by evening be in a different level, or the other way around. Depends if you're a morning person or an evening person. I know that, I found that I'm not a morning person. So I don't plan to do my balancing of my checkbook early in the morning. That's just not going to work for me, right? Because I'll probably get it wrong. I'll probably mess it up. So we have to know when is the best time for you. When is your time to experience what is yours? So in that, we can play in different energies. This doesn't mean that you're always the victim, but you rise to a whole new consciousness when you know that there are laws that you can use. And as you start to understand how these laws work, you start to be that conduit through which they flow. And at some point, you get in the zone in such a way that it becomes you. Where, have you ever felt like, if you've ever played music or sang something, where the music becomes you in such a way that you forget yourself? Where it starts playing you. Where you start to understand that there's something else going on and you weren't doing it. I've had this situation, I play bass, I've played in a lot of bands, and I've had that sensation come over me. And the second that it comes over me and I start going, oh, I'm having that sensation, that's when I mess up. That's when I go, it's happening. And I realize it's happening, and then it goes away because I think that I'm in control of it, right? And then I get back into the mood of the music, and it takes over. So this is what it does. It matches the level of our thinking. So where are you in your thinking? And again, this isn't to judge where you are. This is to identify where you are so you can move gently and easily into new levels of awareness. These levels of awareness are part of Dr. Michael Beckwith, the Agape minister's teaching. He came up with these ideas, excuse me, and they're really great ideas to consider, because if you don't know where you are, you can't believe to know where you're going. And if we don't know where we're going, what are we doing here? So in conclusion, it's done unto you as you believe. What do you believe? What do you believe? Where do you believe you are? What is a belief? It's an idea that we have thought over and over and over again to where it's become part of our psychic energy. So how do we change that? We just believe something else. We start to think in a different way, a different direction, and that's how we change our beliefs. So what does it do? It mirrors our belief. It mirrors. if you want to demonstrate at a different level, you have to change what you believe. You can only demonstrate at the level of your belief. That's why we can't think we believe in prosperity, but our hearts truly believe that we're not worthy. They don't go together. You will only demonstrate at the level of your belief. So, do you want to change your belief today? And it's okay not to. Status quo is fine. You know, ignorance is bliss, only as long as you're ignorant. But once you start to know that there are other levels of consciousness to play in, you start inviting them in. So what are you thinking? What are you thinking? My mom used to say that again. What were you thinking? You're like, I don't know, I wasn't thinking. Well, that's what you got. Right? But I've learned to understand what I'm thinking and to change it when my life is not going in the direction of my dreams. I just course correct. You know, a sailboat doesn't go on one trajectory. If you looked at a sailboat, it goes back and forth with how the wind is blowing. It sets its sails constantly to get the ultimate gust of wind to move it in the right direction. And our lives are that way. Our lives don't just go on one perfect trajectory towards the ultimate goal. Sometimes we have deviation, and that's okay. A good deviation is good once in a while, but don't get stuck there. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow, I shall not take pictures and build a condo there. I shall keep walking, and watch what you'll find. So, know what you're thinking, and if you don't like it, change it. And there are always ways to change your mind. And so it is. Thank you. Well, it's time for our prayer. So if you'd like to just close your eyes, if that's comfortable for you. I invite you to bring to mind your idea of what the power that created you is. What is that power? What do you believe God is, or Great Spirit, Goddess, Divine Source Energy? Whatever you choose to call it, that's your business. But whatever you believe it is, as we identify ourselves within that energetic, that each one of us is right now being part of that power. Each one of us is a divine outpicturing or a demonstration of the awesome power of the universe and its ability to create. So I invite you to bring to mind what your dream is. What is what you love? Bring to mind for just a moment that dream being realized. And how does that feel? And doing this activates that all-loving energy of life. I speak a word of blessing upon anyone who has asked for prayer. Anyone who has looked within themselves and asked, please help me. And I know that that power of love has rushed right in and is there right here and right now. So we say thank you. Thank you for the healing, the revealing, and the active consciousness that is who and what we are. So as we place these words directly into that living law of mind with a grateful heart, we simply let it go, releasing that word into that law, knowing and believing with all our heart that it is already so. As we let it go together, we affirm by saying, "And so it is."